Hello, this is Randy and Tasha Cross, and this is Marriage Loosen the Noose, where we're here to help develop and grow healthy relationships. So, if you wouldn't mind, please sharing, liking, and she says subscribe so nicely. Please don't forget to hit that notification bell. And as always, we appreciate all the comments and gestures that we get for every video that we make. So thank you. Today's topic is
Not a topic. We're doing Q&A. 3 questions.
well, this is my first time narrating, so let's see how this goes.
It's all good.
Today is Q&A.
Yeah.
So today's Q&A question is
So the first one is something huge just happened for you and you're super excited. And then you go and share it with your significant other, but they are kind of like not even excited about it. What do you do?
all right. And before we begin or go any further, we're going to do a rock, papers, and scissors because I want my rematch. So, ready?
Yes.
And this determines who goes first. Dang it! Dang it! That's a stupid game. That was the stupidest game ever invented. Go ahead.
Okay, so we gotta refresh you on the question because we just messed up rock, paper, scissors. You're excited about something that was huge that just happened to you. You went to share it with your significant other. They are not as excited, kind of like blah. So what do you do? So the first thing is I think you need to clearly communicate um, your feelings about how they reacted or the lack of the reaction, right? So it's like, this is something major for me. I'm super excited. I'm sharing it with you, the person that I love, that loves me. And I want you to reciprocate that excitement because this is not only huge for me, it's huge for us,
Or
right?
it should be.
Or
Right.
it should be
Right.
huge for us. And so if it's huge for us, why aren't you celebrating? And even if it isn't all us, why aren't you celebrating because it's happening for me?
Right.
And you should show or demonstrate your love for me and the excitement for what is happening for me. I'm excited about it. So why aren't you excited about it? So I think you first need to explain your point of view of the disappointment or the confusion that you have around them not being excited.
Right.
I think that's number one.
And just to add to that, yeah, because it just might be a disconnect. And so having a conversation and just trying to get clarity on why that person is not as excited as they should be is definitely the best approach to take. Because sometimes it just might be as simple as them understanding that it is a big thing for you, and though they might have initially not saw it as that, that because it is, and they realize it now, that they can then show the type of excitement or joy that warrants that accomplishment. So.
And then another thing to consider is that sometimes when you have an accomplishment, your significant other may not be able to recognize how to celebrate it if they don't or have not had any accomplishments themselves.
Right.
And that can kind of be a hard bridge to cross, right? Nothing really happens for me. I don't have any accomplishments. Why should I be excited for you? I think a good way to try to handle that, though, is to use some examples, especially if you've seen your significant other excited about other things, right? So if you all have children, and let's say your child drew a picture, and we know is not, nothing spectacular, right? Most of the time, children at a young age are doing stick figures.
Right.
But because you're their parent and you love them and they give you something, you're like, oh, thank you. This is so wonderful. This is so great. And it's not that you want your spouse to lie about the excitement that they have for you, but they need to be engaged because it is important to you.
Right.
So it may be helpful to explain it that way. Any other examples of excitement that you could relate to?
Um, well, I think one thing that I want to touch on real quick that just popped up in my head is celebrating particular accomplishments like a promotion or increase in pay. A lot of times that can be a really sticky topic for a couple, especially if I'm not sure why, because I would want her to make as much money as she can. I don't care how much more it is than I make, because it's our money. But a lot of times that impacts one of the individuals in the relationship more than it should in a negative way. And so what that person has to understand is any accomplishment made in a relationship, it's like the both of us making that accomplishment. We're both achieving that goal and celebrating what has been accomplished, no matter if I just was there for support or I benefit just from being a spouse and the amount of hard work and dedication and whatever was needed for her to accomplish that goal was put in from her end. So you just really got to be careful with not acknowledging certain things because the impact isn't the type of impact you want. Just understand that if it is something that your spouse wants to celebrate, that show some excitement, a little joy, a smile, a hug, a yabba dabba do, anything. I mean, just give them a little something to let them know you're there and you're excited about it. So,
So that's the way that you could explain it. And especially for men, typically sports are a huge thing for them. So you could see them get excited over basketball teams winning, right? And
hmm
it can be college, it could be, NBA, NFL teams, whatever, soccer, all these different things. And if you can get excited over that, then you've exhibited you can get excited over something that you find to be wonderful to you. So you can just use that same level of excitement and slide it over to this
yeah,
area that I'm sharing with you about me. So get excited. It doesn't hurt to get excited. So those are a couple ways that you can explain it. The other
absolutely.
thing is you sometimes you got to face the reality that even if you explain it and you lay it all out and you give examples of what they do in other areas and how you would like them to do it over here, if they ultimately aren't going to celebrate with you, you have to keep it moving. So you might be better off not having high expectations if you share it with them, because you're going to
Right,
share it with them.
right,
They're your spouse, they're your significant other.
right,
But maybe you need to reduce the bar, right? The standard for I'm expecting this. And then when you don't get it, you're kind of heartbroken or you're let down. Look,
right.
you share the information. If they're excited or not excited, don't let it impact you heavily, because you know that that's just not the area that they're going to show that type of support.
Yeah. So I say if that happens, turn up solo. Turn up. Don't mano y mano.
Money on money, money on money. All right. Second question. Your significant other has some friends you're not fond of.
Wow.
How do you handle it?
Well, what I would suggest is just keep your distance. If for some reason, there's some history or something that has occurred that has created that wedge or that dislike for that person, it's probably best that you don't continue to bring those people around one another and continue to have them have those interactions where nothing good is going to come out of it. Now, if it's something that isn't warranted, like they don't have any previous knowledge or experience with this person, and they just, for whatever freakish reason, they just don't like that individual, then it might just be them that need to change a few things and reevaluate how they're dealing with things, and they might have to go in and just try to get to know that individual first before you start to come up with that type of conclusion about that individual. And then last but not least, if it's a bad individual, meaning they just have bad habits, infidelity, or just cheating a lot, thinking they're players or pimps, or they're just running the town a lot, and it just the mindset and behavior it just exhibits nothing but negativity. That might be a justified reason in your significant other not wanting you to hang with that person, because what can come out of that from you hanging with that individual and being around those type of behaviors and mindsets so often or so much. So I think for each couple or each relationship, definitely, you got to understand where you are, what your do's and don'ts, for each of you, and then talk about it and try to come to an agreement, a compromise that works for both of you so that, neither one of you are putting yourselves in situations that are uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I agree with that. I would add that there's no way around it. Some people you're gonna like, some people you're not gonna like. That's connected to your significant other.
Right.
Um, and to your point, it's like you minimize those interactions when you can. So if they're coming into your home, that's a whole nother set of conversations, right?
Yep.
Because, your significant other may have I don't know, what do they call it, man cave or something like that, right? And typically everybody comes over and hangs out down there, but it's also a part of your home. So if you can't really separate, right, it may have to be, can you all hang out somewhere else?
Right.
I know it may be an inconvenience, but because I have this issue with this person and you know what the issue is and you know that I'm uncomfortable and or it causes me to feel a certain way, I would rather that you all hang out somewhere else.
Right.
So it's definitely a conversation, but you have to understand you can't really control your spouse.
Absolutely.
I think you need to make it clear what you don't like as far as the behaviors that the person that they're hanging with. And if you start to see your spouse exhibiting those behaviors, even if they're slight, you need to bring it to their attention and say, this is the reason why I didn't want you hanging out. Because what we have to understand is when you're around people a lot, you tend to start either taking on some of their behaviors or they take on some of your behaviors. It can be both and.
Yep.
And if that happens, it's a matter of, are you exhibiting some behaviors that are going to negatively impact you and your significant other, your home, your relationship?
Right.
So you just need to be clear about what it is. And if you see any of it, you need to definitely bring it up and address it. And then you need to lay out some boundaries if needed. Like, if I continue to see these behaviors or they increase
Yep.
because they impact me this way, or because this is the negative that's coming out of it, I may not be able to stay around and deal with these things. So you have to give some weight to what you're saying, because sometimes it's just we're frustrated. Other times it's, this is a hard line. And if this doesn't change, I'm out.
Right.
So you need to make sure you're clear about what it really is, because some things we can deal with and other things we just say we can't.
Right. Sounds good to me.
All right.
All right.
Last question. Your significant other does not get along with your family members or your close friends. What do you do?
Well, uh, close friends, that's one thing, right? But when you're talking about family, I think there are a couple ways to approach that. If there's no real issue, there are no real history that has brought that tension between those individuals, then maybe they just need to get to know each other. Maybe it's just a misunderstanding or a misperception of one another, and that once they get to truly know that individual, a lot of those issues might not even be prevalent. Um, Another case might be you have history, which resulted in you not wanting to be around that individual or even want to hear or talk to that person. And then in that case, then you really got to understand at what capacity can you interact with that individual? Meaning, can we at least be kosher enough to just say hi and keep our distance at family functions and things of that nature? Or is it to a point where we can't even gather without feeling like something's going to escalate beyond verbal conversation? Then you really just might need to just say, pick and choose what you're going to go to and what you're not going to go to, because obviously ultimately your spouse is the person that you want to be with and want to be happy with, so you want to try and determine maybe what y'all can go and do together, and family just is not a part of it. You didn't marry family, you married your spouse. So and that goes as far as friends as well, but obviously friends is not as important in most cases as family, unless you see them as family. And then in that case, then I'm talking about them as well when I say family. So just be really careful when you approach this because it's a really sensitive issue, and
Mhm.
sometimes you just are not going to be able to work it out, and you just have to be okay with not being together when those individuals are around. It's just that simple. So
Right. Yeah, and the thing that I would add when it comes to these scenarios is you need to give room for healing, like to your point, if it was really some issues that occurred. Because when people are hurt, when people are wounded, they just don't want that wound to be exposed. And then, you know what I mean? Something else happens, and now it's
right,
like the wound is opened all over again. And it's just one thing on top of the other. So give time and give space and try to allow people to heal. I think you can talk about it every now and then. I wouldn't talk about it all the time. You need to come,
right,
you need to show up, you need to be here because you know where the person stands. What you could do is I really would like for you to be here because it's important for me to have you at this function. I understand where you are, but let me know when you are willing to come because it's important for me to have you there.
right,
And then just seek to understand, let them continue to explain to you the frustration, even if it's repeated information, because sometimes people just need to release.
right,
And the more they release and the more they talk about it, the better it is for them to go through the healing process. And so if they can talk about it, then you get a lot further
right,
because you're releasing that frustration, which allows room for them to kind of connect or be in the same room or area with the person. And
right,
then sometimes you just have to make sure they stay separated, not really sitting at the same table, sitting in the same area so that nothing sparks if they choose to come. Because if they come and you already know there's history, you need to just be very mindful about vicinity, them being around each other, things happening. You just
right,
have to be more aware. You need to be more focused. You need to make sure nothing occurs because you just don't want additional on top of what's already happened.
right. And just to add to that, the one thing you want to try to make sure is that you're not the main corporate of creating the issue or opinion for your family members about your significant other. You don't want to always, when you're having a conversation with your family members or friends, uh, continue to spew out negativity about your significant other, and then that's the opinion that's what they're basing their opinion off of. And so then they start to not like you just for the things that you've told them, not even at the fact that they know them personally or witnessed it. It's strictly just third party. And a lot of times when we're in our emotions, we exaggerate stuff. We lie about stuff. I mean, there's just a lot of times we don't just understand what really just happened. You know what I mean? And just want to face that. So, really be careful with what you're saying when you're caught up in your emotions to your family members about your significant other and creating that negative vibe there. So, that's just one thing that I want to drop in there and make sure that, just be aware of that. So, right.
So those are the questions. Those are some answers just to help you all out. So just continue to chime in. We're gonna keep it going. Y'all keep it coming. We can do this all together. So much love. What
Peace and
was the
happiness.
no, it was from the Soul Train. What was it? Peace and soul. He don't know.
I don't
He
know.
don't know.
I could do the
Peace,
soul
y'all.
train.
Y'all have a good day.